About a month ago, the First Descendant, a new looter shooter, entered the market with a strong release and over 200,000 players. But we're not talking about just another live service game here. The First Descendant is basically a full-on Warframe clone, which naturally begs the question, could this also maybe be a Warframe Killer? Well, I went and downloaded it, played it for dozens of hours, finished the entire story, and I was honestly very surprised. So, after a big shout out to all generous channel members who helped me keep the lights on, let me tell you everything you need to know about Korean Warframe right here. Alright, now, first things first, what even is the First Descendant? In case you've missed it, the First Descendant is a brand new co-op looter shooter, 4-player squads, what we also know from Warframe and Destiny 2. It came out about a month ago in July, and it's free to play, available both on PC and consoles. The game itself is kind of like a mixture of Destiny 2 as well as Warframe, in that, just like in also Destiny 2, you have a world map with different regions, and as you progress through the story, you step by step unlock more of these regions, and then every one of those regions is subdivided, offering different types of missions to play through, and after every subsection of those regions, there is also, let's say, for lack of a better term, a sort of dungeon where you are in an instanced linear level that you play through with the boss fight at the end, and then you unlock the next subsection of the map, and so on and so forth. Just by looking at the map design, you can see if you've played Destiny 2, then you will feel right at home here. However, unlike Destiny 2 and also unlike Warframe, whenever you've finished an entire region of the map, you will have to go through a boss fight against the so-called Colossus. These are those gigantic creatures that you fight in a separate arena, and only if you beat them will you unlock the new region of the overall world map. When it comes to characters and weapons, then we pretty much have the same situation as in Warframe, where there are different Warframes, just here they're called Descendants, different weapons, and when we take a look at the upgrade section, then every Warframe player will feel right at home here, because this is pretty much a copy-paste version of our modding screen in Warframe, where we have different mods that give us ability strength, range, duration, we have a mod capacity and also different polarities so that when we put in the mods, they consume less capacity. All that stuff is exactly like in Warframe. So yeah, if somebody asks you what is the First Descendant, you can basically say it's the level and world mission design of Destiny 2 combined with the upgrade and character model of Warframe, all thrown together in one pot, mixed and cooked together with some minor adjustments and a little bit of spice sprinkled on top, which is sort of the personal new ideas that the devs put in, but all in all, we can clearly see which two games the First Descendant is inspired by. Alright, so much for the general info. I think everybody who's heard about the game in the first place will have also already known that. Let's now talk about what I think is way more important, and that would be the gameplay. How does it play? Is it actually fun? And maybe even, can Warframe actually learn something from the First Descendant? I think maybe yes. So let's talk about it. Now, the first thing that I need to mention when it's about the First Descendant is, at this current point in time, there is no real melee gameplay right here. Just like in Destiny 2 also, all the weapons in the game are firearms of various types, assault rifles, LMGs, pistols, but there are no melee weapons. I don't know if the devs want to add that at a later point in time, but right now, there is nothing like this. So if you enjoy Warframe melee gameplay, then the First Descendant is probably not going to tickle your fancy. In terms of gunplay, the game is absolutely fine. Headshots feel impactful, they feel rewarding and good, the guns feel nicely, the recoil is not all too bad, it feels all in all grounded, realistic, but I would say it's not quite at the same level in terms of gunplay that we see in Destiny 2 and in Warframe. If those two games are considered AAA top of the industry standard, then the First Descendant I would say is in a solid AA+-ish territory, so that yes, there is some slight room for improvement there, but it is definitely good enough to be rewarding, and it made me want to come back and get more. Now, the thing where the First Descendant really shines though, and what I personally think is even better and even more fun than even Warframe, that would be, surprisingly, the movement. Yes, I know that is an outrageous claim, with Warframe being pretty much the quote-unquote best movement in any game you've ever played, right? We all love Warframe's movement, but for me personally, the movement in the First Descendant is different in a very rewarding and super duper fun to play way. See, we all know how the movement in Warframe is. You have tons of different cool ninja specialties, you can zip around, aim glide, bullet jump, all that good stuff. However, I always had a bit of a problem with this in the sense that even though we have so many different moves and stuff that we can do in the levels, at the end of the day, in Warframe, you're never really incentivized to do that because the bullet jump aim glide combination is always objectively the best choice to make. Want to get through the level quickly? Do bullet jump and aim glide. Want to escape from melee enemies? Do bullet jump and aim glide. Want to get up to a high position? Well, you guessed it, do bullet jump and maybe aim glide. In essence, bullet jump and aim glide are so overpowered in Warframe that we never ever really need to interact with the level in any other way than just that. There is no real depth to it, you know? You cannot master the art of bullet jumping, it's just super easy and everybody can do it with half an hour of practice. Now, when we're talking about the First Descendant, they have a very different approach here. In the First Descendant, we have a very much more grounded gameplay. However, we get a new movement tool, which is a grappling hook that we can shoot out and then pull ourselves towards different ledges. You know, we can pull ourselves up certain structures, but we can also shoot the grappling hook towards the surface and then swing around the side of it. Initially, this might not sound all too crazy, but this whole grappling hook movement system has a lot more depth than you would initially think, and that makes it extremely fun and rewarding to play. See, as I just said, in Warframe you just bullet jump and everybody can do it, it's super easy. But in the First Descendant, a beginner player might use the grapple hook to pull themselves up a ledge, and that's pretty much it, whereas more experienced players can plan out the route that they want to take in their head ahead of time, and then swing around a rock with the first grapple, combine that into a double jump, then shoot the second grappling hook mid-air onto something else, swing around on the other side of that, and this way catapult themselves through the level, which makes movement not only extremely fun, but also gives it more depth in the sense that if you really master the system, then you can get some crazy combos out of this. It just feels so right. You know, your characters behave believably according to the laws of physics. You can feel the weight of your character as you swing around a corner with the grappling hook. I am just the biggest fan ever of this system, and you can also use it in combat by grappling onto an enemy, fly towards them, and then kick them in the face as you close in. To be fair, this is not really an efficient way to play, but it just feels so nice if you pull it off successfully. So yeah, as you can tell from my reactions, the core gunplay, the core movement of this game is extremely fun to play, and especially if you enjoy Warframe, but you know, you played it a lot, you kinda get bored over time and you might want to try out something fresh, then I would say what the First Descendant delivers here might be very, very intriguing. And just by the way, if you could drop a like on the video, that would be very intriguing for me because it helps big time with the YouTube algorithm, so cheers so much for your support. But now, let's also talk about the more negative parts of the game, because unfortunately, there are quite a few as well. Starting out with the story. Now, first of all, yes, this is a looter shooter, and for most players who do like those co-op games, the story is kind of an afterthought anyway, right? I think most of us did not start playing Warframe solely for the story, and if you too are in mainly for the gameplay, then hey, that's probably a really good place to be in, because the story as a whole of the First Descendant, I played through the entire thing and I am really not too hooked. Like, don't get me wrong, the game has some very nice looking cutscenes and, you know, everything is basically there. Visually, it looks gorgeous, but the story as a whole is like really super duper bare bones, to the point where I would even prefer if we hadn't had any story at all and they would have just told me as a player, go in, there are aliens, kill them all, with no further context given. But alright, here is the breakdown. In the game world, there are 3 very powerful items called the 3 Iron Hearts. These Iron Hearts are incredibly powerful magical things that can pretty much do whatever the story currently needs them to be able to do. Most importantly though, they can close the so-called dimensional wall through which these big colossi come into the world and wreak havoc. So our goal as a player is to get all 3 Iron Hearts to then be able to close the dimensional wall and save the world. Problem is though that there's also stereotypical bad guy whose name I've also forgotten because he's so forgettable, who wants the Iron Hearts for himself to make him more powerful or whatever. I kind of really forgot. To be honest, I skipped through half of the story because it was just so incredibly boring in its delivery. So yeah, we play through all the different regions, complete our missions, and at the end we decide to not use the Iron Hearts but destroy them all, because this way sort of the balance of the universe is established or whatever. Honestly, I don't even think that the game itself really understands its whole lore, and that is completely fine, right? Just let me get out there and kill stuff. But, you know, from a narrative standpoint, I think it is very telling that I don't even remember the name of the game world, the name of the main antagonist, or the name of any character in the game, except that one guy who's called Jeremy. But the only reason I remember him is because he's hands down the most annoying character in live service game history. Holy cow, was I happy when he finally died. One good thing to mention here is that the whole thing is voiced in English, and most of the voice actors actually do quite a decent job in delivering their lines. However, this is also watered down by the fact that when you are in a conversation with a character, that character model basically just stands there like they are frozen in position and only move their lips. Like, sure, I get it, you know, animating characters as they talk is a lot of work, and they might have just decided it's not worth the investment, but I think if they have believable voice acting, then if the character just stands right still as they speak, this really kills the impact of the moment.
Just how much do you plan to rely on that guide?
You prefer to keep sending in the investigative corps? How much time have we wasted searching for the Iron Hearts without any leads? Alpha, this is the best opportunity we've had in a century.
So yeah, long story short, in my opinion, the story sucks and is super forgettable, so if you like to play a game for its narrative to really immerse yourself in the lore, then yeah, sure, this is just not the game for you, sorry. This is a game first and foremost for those players who like to kill stuff with their friend and have fun doing so. Okay, so much for the story. One other thing that I definitely need to talk about is performance, because when you read through the Steam reviews, then there are a lot of people that are complaining that the game runs like garbage, it's poorly optimized, and I wanted to find out what is really up with that. Now, before we jump into it, one disclaimer. I personally run an RTX 3080, which is quite a powerful graphics card. However, it is in a mostly obsolete PC with a first generation Ryzen CPU that is 7 years old by now, just so that you have an idea of what I tested this game on. First of all, visually, the First Descendant is absolutely gorgeous. I love the look, it's Unreal Engine 5, you can definitely see it, the environments look awesome, the skyboxes look awesome, and especially the surroundings with those big structures in the sky really make you feel small, and I just love the visual design of the game world itself and, you know, of course, the characters. Long story short, the First Descendant is a very beautifully designed game. However, the downside is that those people who complain that the performance is garbage are unfortunately not too wrong. Let me explain. In most games, if you have a low frame rate, what you can do is you simply lower the graphical settings and then your graphics card doesn't have to work all that much, therefore you get more FPS. Simple solution. In the First Descendant, however, this is a teensy tiny little bit different. The First Descendant is very heavy on the processor, very heavy on the CPU. My 3080 is sleeping at 20% load even on maximum graphical settings, while the processor is completely dying and the frame rate crashes down. Meaning, if you have poor performance and changing the settings doesn't help, that's probably because you're running a relatively old processor and the game doesn't like that. On the flip side though, if you have a somewhat relevant processor in your gaming PC, then you shouldn't need all too much of a high-end graphics card to make things running, because it's the processor who carries most of the load of the game. All in all, I would say it's free to play, you can just download it, boot it up and see how the performance is. If you can play it, or if you say it's too laggy for me, you can simply uninstall it again. But okay, now it is time to talk about the big elephant in the room. See, so far in this video, as you probably also realized, I was very positive about the First Descendant actually, and they didn't pay me or anything to say that. I genuinely just enjoyed my time that I had with the game. However, criticism where criticism is due, the by far biggest freaking problem with this game is the cash shop, because the prices for some of the items here are absolutely outrageous. So let's jump right into it. See, with the First Descendant being very much like Warframe in many aspects, you would naturally expect many Warframe-like items to be in the cash shop here as well. And you would be totally right. For example, there's an item called Energy Activator. What this is pretty much an Orokin reactor / Orokin catalyst. In the First Descendant, the same item works for guns and characters. And sure, what it does is it increases the mod capacity. In Warframe, an Orokin catalyst / reactor costs 20 platinum if you want to buy it in the market. Those 20 platinum in euros would be €1.20 for one Orokin reactor. That's all in all a very fair price. However, do you want to know what this Energy Activator in the First Descendant costs? This thing costs 1200 caliber, which is the premium currency in the First Descendant, and 1200 caliber is roughly around 20 freaking euros. Yes, that's right, increasing your mod capacity on one weapon or one character doesn't cost you 120 like in Warframe, it costs you 20 freaking euros. And yes, it is theoretically possible to farm all these things for free as well. But, if you're one of the people complaining that crafting one forma in Warframe takes 24 hours, well, then be happy to invest 24 freaking hours into just the farming process of getting one Orokin reactor. This is absolutely ludicrous in terms of how much money you have to pay for the essentials that you need to make your weapons and descendants as strong as possible. And sure, let's also take a look at the Forma equivalent, the Crystalline Catalyst or whatever this ring here is called. This, costing 300 caliber, would be around 5 euros. Yes, that's right, after paying 20 quid to get the Energy Activator to increase your mod capacity, you now have to add up to 6 or even more Forma, costing you 5 euros each, so that you easily pay 50 or something euros just to be able to min-max one single character or one single weapon. And there's like 12 or 13 characters in the game, plus around 50 weapons. So yeah, you can surely see where the 50% negative reviews for the First Descendant on Steam come from, and I don't want to defend the game at all in this regard. I personally think that the pricing for those essential items especially is incredibly overpriced. But, what do you expect? It's a Nexon game, and whoever knows the name Nexon knows that this company is infamous for their predatory pricing in all the games that they publish. I mean, it's a Korean company, and unfortunately, especially in Southeast Asia, the general mentality about paying for games is drastically different from what we have here, but I definitely hope that they don't kill their game over this predatory pricing and hopefully give us some much needed discounts in the future. But yeah, after we talked about all these points, the gameplay, the story, performance, and the unfortunately very crappy cash shop design, is the First Descendant here to stay? Is it a one-trick pony that will be forgotten in a month? Or could it actually be a legitimate competition for Warframe long term? I personally think if they don't annihilate their fan base with their predatory pricing and hopefully bring it down to some more realistic levels, then the First Descendant definitely has potential to be here long term and maintain their high player base if they keep the new content flowing in. The core gameplay is extremely fun and addicting, and especially for all of us, the players who like looter shooters, who like to farm for their weapons, who like this whole playstyle, this game delivers a lot of that. So, if you enjoy games like Warframe and Destiny, but you kind of feel burned out, which is something that naturally happens for every one of us, then maybe the First Descendant is worth looking at, even if you just stick around for a couple of hours, enjoy the fun gunplay and movement, and then come back to Warframe eventually. I personally genuinely had a really great time with the game. I enjoyed it even so much that I decided to open up a brand new YouTube channel and publish helpful guides there, just like I do here with Warframe. I know, crazy naming convention, right? Another big shout out to Niels V, Demon Lord Zell, Demon Emperor, Emperor Prime, Nostlinux Gaming, Lycan Shepherd, Turtlepeer, Pepperwolf, Ondakani02, Miss X, Streamjet21, SignUpKing5000, Gribbly Pixie, Mihawk HE, Yagis, and all other generous channel members for your continuous support. We see each other, hopefully in the next one, and until then, as always, good loot.